economic stability.
Greetings, Zimbabwe. Welcome to Zimbabwe Daily. Meet the candidates.
My name is Robert Chapman. I am Zimbabwean, born and raised. I grew up in Chinoy, now in Harare, but 41 years old. I'm a father, a husband, a Christian, a pilot, a business person. So yeah, that's probably the best I can say.
So maybe to start with the event that you've been attending,
Yes.
Can you briefly tell us what it was about?
Yeah, so this is the the CZI, Confederation of Zimbabwe Industries, and this is a very important topic. This is a formal sector, and some of the folks in the room are some of the largest employers in the country. Huge supply chains throughout the country. It's important that when we're looking at economic stability, and for us, we have three pillars in our party, Democratic Union of Zimbabwe. We have prosperity, justice, and modernization. And this group here represents two of those pillars, which is prosperity, meaning that we want to help them increase the capacity in job creation, which is a very top point for us is creating jobs in the country. And the employers here can tell us why they're not able to recruit more people, or why maybe they might be losing business and laying people off or retrenching people. So these are the same folks that will be here beyond political terms. So any new president that comes in or any new leader comes in, an MP or councillor, they'll most likely be working with the same executive business owners that are in this room, the formal sector. When we look at modernization, there's a fine line between interaction between government and private sector. And it's important that we have consistent dialogue, not just think tanks, really from an advisory standpoint, that when we're looking at policy making or infrastructure development, we're consulting private sector on things that might impact their productivity or efficiency. So coming to this event is very important, and in fact, we should all be engaged in it. It's not political. This is all about creating jobs, be able to create margins and profitability, and be able to develop products and become innovative as a country, so we can then be relevant within SADC, within the continent, and then within on the global marketplace. So this meeting today was very important. So I was glad I was able to attend.
And we understand that you've been moving around in different communities to let people even know about yourself as a candidate. Tell us about your presidential candidature. What drove you? What pushed you as a Zimbabwean to become a presidential candidate?
Thank you. That's a great question. You know, a lot of people looked at us and said we had just popped up on the scene and came here. We've actually been planning this for quite some time. Initially, I had very minimal intent of being involved in the process. I love private sector, and it's very quiet. You're not in anyone's public eye. You can either succeed or fail privately. In public sector, in government work or civil servant, you succeed or fail publicly. And so there's an aspect of that. We spent some time talking to other political parties and see how could we help them and take things to the next level. And what we realized was there didn't seem to be a real conscious effort or intent to really drive change. So we looked at that and said, maybe we should go and move in our own direction. And that's what we did. And so for me, coming from a presidential side, I think it goes back even to my childhood. My grandfather was a builder, a developer. He built school, ran schools as a teacher in his community. He built his community. My grandmother did the same thing. She would build people, raise them. Very blue collar. She was a matron at a boarding school for a very long time. So for me, looking at our country, every time I would come and visit, which was pretty frequently, a lot of people think I was just sitting in the States doing nothing. I came to back to Zimbabwe quite a lot. I believe in 2019 I was here 6 times. And so one of the things I would see is things were not getting better. They just weren't. And what I saw was other people, maybe even other foreigners, seemed to be succeeding far faster than our own people. And the first thing I started thinking to myself is, we've got to make something happen. We got to change the trajectory of our country. And so we made the decision to move, and I made the personal decision to run. As a party, we formed it there, and we obviously consulted with our team. And if they believed I wasn't the right person, I was happy to step aside and take maybe a more quiet role. But they believed that with the experience I have from the world I've come from and how I grew up, that I may be a better contender with what's out there today. Corruption is at the center of any economic policy, and of course, I think the last 36 hours we've seen someone literally just walk scot-free. This is not the first person we've seen them that had been accused of really large level of corruption, $5 million. And we've seen this with gold. We've seen this even in people in public office. I saw the one where money was taken out of a bank account of a business here. It looked like it was tied to some other officials. And I'm surprised that didn't make the news, because that was a large sum of money. Corruption is a big factor when we look at economic stability. When we look at investing and we look at job creation, there has to be a fabric of trust that exists, that there is a judicial process that I can take a risk somewhere. And even if I lose on that risk, which is business, a lot of businesses take that into account, what is the risk factor? Even if I lose, there is a mechanism in place that is trustworthy, that either I can get some of that back, some of that money back, or someone is held accountable if I am ripped off. We don't have that today. We don't have it at all. And so when we talk about corruption in economic development, those are two parallel paths that have to run. And we have to be very strict and very stringent on corruption, and look at it and taking it further even through ill-gotten gains as well. So we have to dig deeper. And in our government, it is number one part of our pillar of justice, is we have to fight corruption. If we're going to thrive economically, we have to fight corruption, and we have to fight it with a very strong fist. And so that's what we intend to do.
I also wanted to talk about the health sector in Zimbabwe, and you can see that it has been a challenge to the people of Zimbabwe. What do you intend to change when you get into office?
That's a great question, and a little bit longer one, because some of my work experiences in the healthcare sector in the U.S., and the city I lived in was the hub for healthcare in most cases around the world. And so we have to look at the entire care continuum of a patient. So we start everywhere from population health. Population health is our community healthy? And are they eating the right proper foods? Are they having balanced diets? Is the food affordable? Just because they're eating something may not be good for their bodies. And then the second thing we look at is access to care. And that is in different levels. So if we look at primary care physician, instead of having the hospitals bombarded with the emergency room being used as sort of a primary care, we need to have doctors' offices where people are going into doctors' offices for their basic checkups and basic needs. And then for us in our government is going to then be rebuilding and is implementing new provincial hospitals as well as clinics around the country. And in the urban areas, it's very easy to put that together and build those. But the focal point now is making sure that we have the right human resource that is in the rural communities. So if we're looking at midwives, if we're looking at triage centers, there's a clinic, and do we have employees in those communities that are living there, versus a vehicle that comes through and is essentially doing almost what an NGO would do, is making sure we have that. The unfortunate aspect that we've seen today in our healthcare sector, outside of the infrastructure side of things, is now the human element. We have become a training ground for the healthcare workers around the world. We train them, we build them here. Great expertise, great learners with a great mindset, and then we lose them to other countries because we can't seem to pay people well. We can't seem to provide them the things that they need. If you talk to a doctor or you talk to a nurse and you ask them why they're doing what they're doing, it's generally because they want to take care of people. And if they don't have the supplies that they need, or have the equipment they need, or the facilities they need, and their patients are either dying or suffering, it diminishes the value that they see on that society. It even causes stress on them as a human being. So for us, the human element is far more important, and we want to be able to make sure that those folks are taken care of. The example I give, I tell people all the time, if I was ever to have brain surgery, I don't want my doctor or my surgeon to be worried about his car payment. I want him to be earning enough. The only thing he's worried about is making sure that my surgery goes well and I recover well. So it's an entire ecosystem of healthcare that we have to look at. The entire care continuum of patients, everything from preventative care to annual checkups and care, and then we're looking post-care as well, and then looking at specialty organizations. We have to reduce the cost of healthcare, and then we also have to look at the billing aspect of it, where we start moving towards electronic records, which help us fight abuse of drugs, prescription drugs. We have to look at pharmacies, where the cost, and are we having the best and newest level of drugs that are available in our pharmacies. And is there insurance policies that can be created to the private sector and government sector that people can pay into something and it doesn't break the bank if someone was to get sick or break an arm or if your child was ill? So there's an entire ecosystem that we have to look at within healthcare, but immediately we would have to quickly build infrastructure.
Let's talk about national healing. What's your message to the young people, to the women, and to the men in Zimbabwe?
That's, again, a loaded one that we would look at today. We need it. And the first part of fixing any problem is acknowledging that we have one. And I think we spend too much time trying to either isolate or personalize things or even try to dodge them. So, we are built of villages and tribes in this country. And there are some instances where some tribes have been offended and we refuse to acknowledge that certain atrocities have been committed, And so we have to acknowledge that and come to a peace and reconciliation, and where accountability needs to be done, accountability needs to be done. We have to be honest about it and move in that direction. The big part of reconciliation has to start with leaders. And at some point we have to find each other, whether it's through love of country first, before we love each other, whether it's love of prosperity. Whatever it does that connects us or binds us, we have to find those angles. One thing that I did see was just how divided it was, even just from our announcements. We knew that it was going to happen. And the fact that we could predict that the sort of like the hate speech or things that would come out, even we knew it was coming. Yeah, we knew the accusations would come. We were completely baseless. So I think, when we look at national healing, it's absolutely detrimental for us to do it. Now, I'm going to say something that might seem a little odd to folks, but being mixed race as well, for me, helps me understand both sides of where the country needs to go. So it's not just tribal, it's racial, it's economic. We have economic differences in this country to a point where we're worshiping things that really are frivolous. They're not real. And what we need to do is be able to find each other as citizens first. If we don't heal as a country, it opens the door and the gates for other people to come into our country and pillage everything that we have and take it out, and we still remain fighting each other. So at some point we have to sit down and say, where's our middle ground? When I think of the political spectrum that we have in our country, I believe that we can find each other 80% of the time. We'll have commonalities of agreement. So I can talk to someone that's in an opposition, I can talk to someone who's against us, I can talk to someone who doesn't even agree with me at all being in politics. But if we ask the most basic questions, do we want a functional healthcare system? Yes, we do. Do we want jobs that pay well? Yes, we do. Do we want protections? Do we want a functional police department? Do we want national security? Do we want to want to own our land and have access to title deeds? Do we want to have generational wealth we create? We're going to agree on all of these very simple matters. Then there's 10% that we'll never see eye to eye on, and that's okay. The moment we understand that it's okay that there's 10% of things we'll never agree on, we'll just never see eye to eye, then there's another 10% where we'll negotiate. The problem is we spend too much time on the 10% we never agree on, that we're losing out on the 80% of the very thing that makes us human. So national healing is very important, but we have to be honest about what it is, where do we need to heal, and how do we find each other. If it means that we make an apology, someone needs to be held accountable, that's what it's going to take for us to heal, and that's what we have to do.
Anything interesting that people should be looking forward as you prepare for the campaigns?
Yes, so we're already in it. So we're traveling around the country. We're spending a lot of time with folks. We're talking to a lot of people. It's been extremely welcoming. I went jogging the other day, and I didn't think a lot of people knew. I didn't realize we had got into so many markets. I found myself with a lot of people around me that I wasn't prepared for. So it's been extremely welcoming. The biggest thing for us, we're keeping it very simple. It's just 3 pillars. Prosperity, and that's an individual definition. For some people, they say prosperity means I want to own my land. I want to leave it to my children and my grandchildren. I want to trust that no one's going to take it from me. Some people's prosperity is I want to earn enough money I can take a holiday with my family twice a year. Some people's prosperity is I want to send my child to school. They'll be the first one to go to university or to college. There's so many different definitions of prosperity. We want people to find that in our system, and we're going to talk about that a lot. not from a money standpoint or some sort of wealth standpoint. We're talking about fulfillment, being fulfilled, that my country is, I've built something in this country I can leave to my kids and change trajectory. The justice system, my goodness, is we want to talk about how do we mend the broken trust that we have between citizen and government, between citizen to citizen. We even have broken trust amongst each other, business to citizen and business to government. We want to be able to mend that through a good judicial process. Then the third one is the fun part. How do we build our country together, and where do we start, and how do we make that work? So our message is going to be very, very simple. Let's get this country working again. Let's get people paid well. And then we want you to trust that no one's going to come after your money, because we've been able to revamp our justice system, and we're training our police and our military to ensure that their number one job is to protect the citizens and protect the country, not to attack it.
This was a very interesting conversation, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Do you have any lasting message that you want to share with anyone who will be listening today?
Like I said, our message is very simple. I appreciate that you have come to me and asked for the interview all here at the symposium. The only thing I ask folks with our party, we know that there have been a lot of people are tied to certain areas, and in some cases, we know that some folks are even questioning whether should I participate in this election, And my encouragement is, one is register to vote. Take personal responsibility and take the opportunity to go register to vote. It doesn't cost you anything, maybe a little bit of time, but take the opportunity to go register to vote, because over the next few months, we're going to ask you to have an open mind and listen to the messages and be able to question and articulate where people are coming from to determine if they can lead you where you want to go. So we have to look back and see where these people are coming from, and are these candidates viable? The beauty is that the opposition, all the opposition leaders or all the other opposition candidates are going to be making promises. So people will be looking at their personal achievements and the way that they're carrying themselves. Do these people do this? The incumbent, unfortunately, has to show what they've developed, which is we have an opportunity here to really change our country, but we don't want people to wait until it's too late to realize the opportunity to make a change is here, but they never register to vote. So one is take the opportunity, register to vote. Do yourself a favor, even if you're non-aligned or if you are aligned or you're angry the way things are, whether it's through opposition or it's through the government, take the opportunity, register to vote, and then have an open mind. Pay attention, don't get caught in it, because sometimes it gets a little overwhelming, but have an open mind, and then make it personal and ask yourself, with this candidate, can I be successful? With this counselor, can I be successful? With this MP, would I experience prosperity? 5 years is a long time not to decide to vote. And so if you're 23 today and you're not registered and you don't participate in this election, you'll be 28 before you have the chance, this opportunity again. How much of your life is going to change? You'll probably end up getting married, maybe even have a child in the same 5 years. If you're 50 years old, you'll be 55. So we have to be very serious in the 5 years. We can really change this thing, but it takes personal responsibility to register to vote. And then the last thing I'll say is, if no one's told you lately, I love you and I love our country. If we can find each other that way first, we can have the debates we need to have and still be friends afterwards. So that would be my only message.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, for coming through today.
Thank you.
And we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
We hope to talk to you when you get into office.
Thank you very much. Thank you.